Hello and welcome to episode 6 of our Sunbelt Baseball podcast with Matt and Ty. I'm Matt Stewart. There's legendary Texas State baseball coach Ty Harrington, and we're getting closer and closer to the Sunbelt tournament. What was your baseball weekend like, Coach?
And interesting to say the least, because I didn't have anything on Friday, because Texas State, they did softball this past weekend. And so I went to Austin, and University of Texas had Oklahoma State in town, got to see Saturday's game and then called Sunday's game as well. And so it was a lot of radio, but fun. Some good baseball on Saturday and Sunday, actually. It just depended on what side of the baseball or what color jersey you were rooting for. And so it was good, and so I enjoyed it. And I had another, and then I had a Tuesday game, I think, as well. And I know you had a great weekend or a big weekend. You were it was at Georgia, right? That you guys had Vanderbilt, is that
At
right?
Georgia, the Bulldogs swept Vanderbilt for the first time since 2003. Outscored them 35 to 14, or no, I'm sorry, 35 to 11. And the amazing Charlie Condon homered, and as we sit here right now, is homered in 7 consecutive games. He has 33 home runs on the year. I think there's a really good chance he's going to blow by 40. And if Georgia stays in this thing long enough, I don't think he can catch Pete Incaviglia, but my gosh, he's got a really good shot of going over 40. He's just unbelievable. He's a phenomenon. It's been doing this a long time. I've never seen an individual season like this.
Well, and I know this is Sunbelt, but tell his story a little bit more, because I read part of it, and like I said, one of my friends knows him well, and so
Right.
you told me he was barely recruited out of high school, isn't that right?
It wasn't, yeah. Yeah, so we'll dive into it real quick, and then we'll get into our Sun Belt. And by the way, we are going to talk to Southern Miss baseball coach Christian Ostrander coming up here in just a few minutes. Golden Eagles had a big weekend as they swept Coastal Carolina, and we'll dive into that and all the other big stories coming up here momentarily. Yeah, but Charlie Condon was not even recruited. He played at the Walker School in Atlanta, where I live. It's a very tiny school. It's a single A school out of 7 classifications, so you can tell it's very small. He had no offers to play baseball coming out of high school. He was also a quarterback and a punter on his football team. Again, it's single A football. His one opportunity was to play football and baseball at Rhodes College, Division III school in Memphis. And so that's what he was going to do. But travel ball coach or his high school coach, one of the other, called the University of Georgia, knew then head coach Scott Strickland, and said, hey, man, take a look at this guy. All he's ever wanted to do was play for Georgia. And so they took him as a preferred walk-on. And he didn't even play his first year. They redshirted him as he got bigger and stronger in the weight room. And then last year was his redshirt freshman season. He hit 25 home runs as a redshirt freshman, and now he has 33 as a redshirt sophomore. And everybody seems to be on board with this now. He's most likely the number 1 pick in the MLB draft, unless somebody's just choosing something at the top where they got to have a pitcher or something like that. If he's not 1, he's going to be 2. So, or 3. I mean, he's going to be right there. But the thing that's really extraordinary about him, if you get a chance to watch him, is just the exit velocity off the bat. I mean, there are never any soft ones, man. They're all 100 plus, 110 off the bat, whether it's an infield grounder or whether it's a 415-foot home run. So, yeah, he's an extraordinary kid too. About as humble and conscientious and respectful as you could ever meet, almost to like, yes sir, no sir kind of thing. And I appreciate that respect, but I'm almost like, you don't have to do that all the time that you talk to me. You can just call me Matt. That'll be fine. So, but he's a great kid, and it's great to see him doing so well. But anyway, let's hop into the Sun Belt here. And our number one story of the week has got to be the Troy Trojans, who had won 8 in a row and nearly had a sweep of Louisiana in Troy over the weekend. Had they been able to accomplish that, they'd be tied for first right now. Louisiana was able to pull one out of the fire, a wild one too, in the finale, 14-13 in extra innings. So Louisiana comes out of the weekend, 2-game lead at the top of the Sun Belt standings, might be enough, but whether Troy ends up catching them and winning the championship or not, they've established themselves as a team to be reckoned with, not only going into the Sun Belt postseason, but also the NCAA postseason.
Yeah,
I watched bits and pieces of game 1 and 2. As I was doing some work, I put my phone up in my booth, and I'm able to go between game and game, and as I'm doing other games as well. And then what's interesting is on the Sunday game, I'd kind of given it, well, they're going to win that game because they were up 11-5, I think, going into the ninth, something similar to that. And then all of a sudden, the night's over, and I'm headed home, and I start scrolling through. I get home, I start scrolling through scores and just actually trying to unwind from the weekend, probably having the beers, rolling through them, and all of a sudden I look at the see the score. I'm like, oh my! It made my stomach hurt both ways, because as a coach, you're trying to hold down a win with a 6-run lead, and then you see it dissipate. But then, as the other side of it, if you do something like that, so hard to do that, and then they take it back from you, and it just shows you just how fun and how crazy college baseball can truly be, and particularly with Louisiana, who's thrown the ball so well all year, and and for some crazy things to happen to give up 6 like that late, but then they come back, show resiliency and toughness, and find a way to win the game and come out of the series with 1 win.
Yeah, I was listening to the D1 baseball podcast with Mike Rooney, and it's funny. They called this kind of game. They weren't talking about this game, but this is what they were talking about: a crab in the bucket game. You know how crabs in a bucket are always climbing over each other, trying to get to the top. That 14-13 game was a crab in the bucket kind of game, and Louisiana ended up being the crab that got out of the bucket. But it was like that was a wild one. And Troy hit a grand slam in the bottom of the ninth to force extra innings, and then Louisiana gets a couple of runs and extras. Connor Higgs hit a big home run for them, and Troy's now ranked in the D1 baseball top 25. I think first time in over a decade. They're 21, and Louisiana's 22. From an RPI standpoint, Trojans are 47 and Louisiana's 50. What do you think about Louisiana and that RPI? I mean, they're still on top of the conference at the regular season. Do you feel like they're okay with that RPI?
I think they've got to finish strong. I do. I think they need to. You got 6 games left, and I think if I remember right, they've got Georgia Southern, yes, and South
They
Alabama
got to be at
left.
Georgia Southern. Yeah.
Yeah, and Georgia Southern's been good, particularly in conference, and they played really well at different times. And in South Alabama, fighting to get in there and continue to. That's possible. Then let's say have a great weekend this weekend. So, they need. I think Louisiana's got to finish good, and if they do that, and they put themselves in a position to win the regular season, and then do okay. But I don't think they'd have to do a ton in the tournament. But I think they'd have to do maybe something, and that's only based out of past experience. And
Right.
but I think that I think they've got themselves obviously in a good spot. Winning the regular season of the Sun Belt will mean something. It'll carry some weight.
Yeah, it's even surprising to be asking that question, but because I think they got a 2-game lead now with 6 to play. I think they should be able to hold that off. That 2 games doesn't sound like a lot, but with 6 to play, it is a lot. But Troy does have the tiebreaker for the number 1 seed, so we'll wait and see what happens. But Troy, no doubt, has been, and we talked to Skylar Meade last week. That team that he has a bunch of mashers on that team. Will Butcher and Cole Myers and Brooks Bryan, the catcher, and Kyle Mock. Man, they can really smash the cover off the ball.
They're plenty offensive. I'm excited. I get to see them this weekend. I'll have them in San Marcos and Texas State. Now they're up against it, and when I'm sure we'll talk about that even a little bit later. They've got to
Will.
keep climbing to make sure to get into the Sun Belt tournament, and so we'll see them play at a high level. So I'm anxious to see Troy this weekend and what that team offensively looks like is what you're adding to. And Skyler was so excited. You could just see it and hear it in his voice, the confidence that he's got in his players and the confidence that they have, and they're playing with it. I mean, he not only exudes it about his players, which coaches love to do anyway, but you see it, and you're seeing it on the field, and then even represented by the great comeback that didn't get fit. They didn't win that last game, but for them to even keep doing that in a game where they had a chance to sweep, where a lot of times guys get down like that on that third game, and they're like, we did good, we won two. But no, not that bunch. They kept fighting with a chance to try to sweep Louisiana, and I think it shows their personality as well.
Story number 2, Southern Miss sweeps Coastal Carolina as the Chanticleers freefall continues. This is kind of stunning, and we'll talk about the Golden Eagles in depth here with Coach Christian Ostrander in just a few minutes. So we'll go in depth with those guys, but they have now won 31 games on the season. That's 22 straight seasons. They've done that, at least 30 wins, and they're tracking for more. I think they're solid unless something terrible happens and they just collapse. And as Coach Oz will tell you, they've had some pitching issues, but, man, nobody's had pitching issues kind of like Coastal has. But the Chanticleers are now 11-13. They're tied for 8th, 9th, and 10th with South Alabama and Georgia State. And they've got Georgia State this weekend, so that's another one of those that's a crab in the bucket series right there. So we'll wait and see what happens. But the Chanticleers, a couple of weeks ago, we're talking about them maybe hosting an NCAA regional. How nervous should they be just about getting in the NCAA, just getting in the Sun Belt tournament, much less the NCAA tournament?
Well, personally, yeah, I think they're probably more interested in why they're not playing well as opposed to being nervous about, what lies ahead of them. I think they're probably trying to figure that out. I know the pitching side of it has been of interest to them. I think that, we know after talking to Gary a couple of weeks ago that they've had a ton of, bad luck with injuries and different guys that have been peeled out of the off their roster because of that. And they're just, look, it's not the minor leagues. You don't have guys you call up in the middle of the season to replace guys that get hurt. A lot of people don't understand that. And then a lot of people say, well, they use the next man mentality. Well, yeah, you do, right? But there's a reason why those guys were your number one and number twos going into it. And so it's sometimes incredibly difficult to overcome. Sometimes you don't overcome it. I mean, I've seen teams and been a part of teams that you just didn't. But again, I think they're probably trying to figure out why they've lost 8 in a row, why it's been that way, and probably putting most of their attention towards that. And it really goes back to now the old baseball adage we coaches used to throw around our dugout and our players all the time. It's definitely one game at a time, one pitch at a time for them right now. And it just slows your players down from looking too far ahead about what you just mentioned. The what if. What if we don't? What if we, let's everybody hold on, let's catch our breath. And it does magnify every series, but at this point of the time of the year, anyway, every game, unless you just got yourself, somewhere so solid in an RPI perspective that you're going, hey, let's just keep playing hard, let's keep doing the same. But it just
I think that's what makes the Sun Belt tournament so fun, and we'll be there in a couple of weeks. Even all these good teams that we've talked about, Louisiana, and Coastal, Southern Miss, Georgia Southern, another we'll talk about here in just a moment. They all go there, and they're highly motivated to win. Nobody's going there thinking, oh, well, we can just get a win or two and we'll be okay. I think they all go there. Nobody ever feels totally safe going, even if they're having a great season, nobody ever feels totally comfortable in the Sun Belt tournament.
Yeah, I agree. Look, I agree, but there's enough RPI value in the tournament that if you play well and you do good, you can scoop up some value and and really help you start to solidify yourself and putting yourself from the NCAA perspective. And so that's the good thing about, one, the history of the Sun Belt over the last couple of years. You talked about it earlier with Coach Ostrander when we were talking to him about, the number of teams that have been in the tournament over the last couple of years, and what the tournament and what the conference is like now, and the addition of adding Southern Miss and the value they brought with them, RPI wise, tradition wise, all those things, facilities. What an unbelievable baseball program. And so, but point is that there's ability to scoop up value, RPI value.
Story number 3, and that's James Madison. They win 2 out of 3 at home against Arkansas State. Not a surprise there. Their RPI is 37. Their strength of schedule is 17. The thing that surprised me in the topic I'm talking about here is in the latest NCAA baseball regional projections, which were last week, and they come out every Wednesday, they did include James Madison. And I got to ask you, from a coach's perspective, how surprising is that? And I know the projections are not gospel. And just because D1 baseball says they're not in doesn't mean they're not in. But would you be surprised at 37 and 17 with those metric numbers if they didn't get in?
Well, we won't know. I'm not trying to jump the side of your question. We don't know because we don't have the full body. We don't know what these next 6 games do to them. And if they take the next 6 games and they add that as value, and they're still at 37, and then they end the season in a positive way, and they carry that 37 into what we just talked about, the value of the tournament, and they were still landed at 36, 35-ish, something like that, yeah, I'd be surprised they were left out. So, in all honesty. So, I mean, I think, what everybody, when you look at where everybody is today, that is exactly, but you got to remember, this as good as anybody. This is such a fluid part of the season because we've got more. When you're doing the mathematical part of an RPI, there's more data now. There's going to be even more data in the next 2 weeks that are going to compress those numbers and obviously give you where it is. Where if you do good and you keep winning, you can stay where they are. I would be at that point in time surprised if they keep adding value to their win column.
Yeah, the last D1 projections had Louisiana in, had Coastal in, had Troy in, had Southern Miss in, and here's what James Madison battles in relation to all those 4 teams that I just mentioned. They got cachet. They got historical cachet. They've been there. They've done that. It's not James Madison's going to be battling that a little bit, so they might have to do a little bit extra this year because they don't have the history. Not the kind of history that those 4 programs have.
Yeah, and again, on top of that, I think to do that, it's all going to depend on what the 6 end are and what they do in the tournament to continue to catch the committee's eye and make that 36, maybe elevate it to 33 where it gets hard. Now, I've seen teams left out. I've seen teams left out in their 30s. And, RPI is not the only thing that's used by the committee. And I think everybody's got to, understand that part of it as well. And what you brought to life is very true. All these other programs have, history on their side. They've got attendance on their side. They've got a lot of different factors that can, not always, depending who they are, can come into play from a committee perspective. And I just think they've got to continue to grab value these at the end of this.
All right, rest of the Sun Belt this past weekend, Georgia Southern swept ULM 3-0, and they went up 8 in the RPI. They're at 70. They're still a ways away, but they do have momentum. 5th place App State takes 2 out of 3 at home versus South Alabama. Jags got blasted 23-3 by the Mountaineers on a Sunday doubleheader after they had won on Friday, had a rain out on Saturday. Texas State stayed afloat, taking 2 out of 3 against Old Dominion. They had a big 18-4 run rule victory on Friday night. And, of course, the Bobcats welcome in the hottest team in the conference, Troy, needing to win that series this coming weekend, which will be a tall task. And Georgia State just hanging on by a thread. They dropped 2 out of 3 at Marshall. And now the Panthers play at Coastal this weekend, and that could be a make or break series for the winner and the loser of that series.
I agree with you. I mean, it's a huge series.
I agree with you. I mean, it's a huge series in a lot of different ways. And, when you start thinking about, you know, tournament implications, whether you get in, don't get in, I mean, it adds a little bit to it. But in the same breath, I mean, even as a coach, if you allow yourself to get away, you know that, and get ahead of yourself too far, you might find yourself putting yourself in a situation emotionally about, hey, we got to do this, it. But the reality is 6 games is still a lot of baseball. It doesn't seem like it when a 56-game schedule. But those last 6 games, think about that. Think about if you won all 6. Think about if Coastal went back and started playing like that. Think about if Georgia State, remember when they were playing so good? Remember, and all of a sudden you hit a hot streak and you win 4 of those 6, 5 of those 6. Start looking what that does for your team. And so again, this weekend's good. Obviously, every weekend's going to, make a difference in the overall. That's why it's going to be exciting this weekend. And I think I talked about it when we first started this podcast, that last weekend, it wouldn't shock us if there's only a game or 2 difference between a lot of teams getting into the tournament and and those 3 teams at the top, which really right now there's about 3 of them that in there and what that might look like from who's going to win a regular season championship.
All right, time now to bring in Southern Miss head coach Christian Ostrander. Coach Oz, thanks a lot for being with us. Congratulations on a 3-game sweep of Coastal Carolina over the weekend at the Pete. Kind of take us through that series and what that series means for you guys as you set up for the final 2 weekends of the regular season and get ready for the Sun Belt tournament.
Well, it was a great weekend for us. I mean, any time you sweep an opponent in conference play, that's so powerful and hard to do. So, but it was, it came at a good time for us. We've, I'm not saying we haven't been as consistent as we wanted to be in some of those regards, but tough series loss the week before at Lafayette where, we had a late inning home run that kind of crippled us and stuff. So to see the guys bounce back, the thing that I was most proud of was we played very good baseball, and it was very clean, all aspects, and against a great program we got a ton of respect for, and I thought we just played very good.
Coach, I think when I came in and you guys were chatting just a little bit before I came on, and I think it's a question that people are interested in, and I know I am, and I know, there's 24 hours in a day, and 22 and a half of them are spent with baseball. Most people probably don't know that. They've never coached before, but since you've been on the pitching side for so long, and now you're the head coach. So do you keep the responsibilities pitching-wise, and if so, or did you add somebody to the staff, or what does that look like dynamic-wise for Southern Miss now on the staff?
Well, I definitely, I want to be as deep as I can with the pitchers. I still call the game, just all those things. And from the developmental side, I think that's something we've done a pretty good job here at Southern Miss, the last 7 years, and beyond that or before that of, bringing guys on and develop them. So we want to continue that. And to me, we could really try to use that high school model as much as we can and do that. But it was very important to me when I got this opportunity that I felt like that's what helped me get here. And I feel like that's something that I need to continue to do. I got a great assistant coach, Keller Bradford, that pitched here for me in 2018 that helps me with the guys. And, he takes the old workload of trying to organize bullpens amongst classes and weight schedules and all that stuff, so he tells me when we're going to do it, and I'm always there. So I try to be as visible as I can and be the voice for him as much as I can, as well as, the rest of the team. And it takes some finagling with your schedule, your practice plan. It makes for some long days, but it is what it is. I think it's important.
As a guy that was –
Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. No,
No, I'm
go
just
ahead.
going to follow up. Do you peek over to the offensive side, or how does that work with you now?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I trust my hitting guys, but I also want to have a say. I want to have a voice in that too. I think that's important, and we got a lot of communication and things of that nature. I let them do their things, but there are things that I want to make sure that our standards are, the voice is, very. There's a lot of passion about certain things, and I love that part of it. I feel like as a pitching coach, you kind of learn a little bit about hitting too, in a lot of respect, because you're trying to get them guys out. And, and you kind of have a perspective, I guess, from an offensive standpoint as well. And, but no, like I said, I'm not a micromanager. I let our guys coach, but I want to be involved. And, I'm big on the mental side and motivational side of things. And, so I think, that presence and voice is important.
As a guy that is now the head coach, but has been a pitching coach, that's your background. Kind of take me through the evolution of the pitch game in college baseball now that the catchers have earpieces and the pitchers can hear the call, and you got armbands and the old way of flashing the signals in from the dugout to the catcher, catcher to the pitcher, and all that. That's all changed. How has that how has that impacted you as you've had to change with the game, as has every pitch coach in America has had to change with that game?
Yeah, it's I'm doing things now I thought I'd never do. I can remember 20 something years ago, my first stint as Division I pitching coach. We're just touching noses and ears and relaying signs and getting it
Exactly.
in and whatever, and then those wristband things started happening, which I said, you know what, I'm never going to do that. Well, I did, and and then the new technology comes up with the things, and I said, no, we don't need that. Well, we got it, and honestly, now we're at a point, between the talking to your catcher, between the pitch com where they can hear you, or the the signals on the band there. I like it. It speeds things up. It takes things out of the equation. Worried about signs being stolen from second base and stuff. It's simplified it. So I'm not a. I was stubborn, to want to go to it, but now that we're in it, it's not bad.
Let me ask you this, because this is just a personal observation, but I'm curious about your opinion on this. Do you, with TrackMan and now with umpires, and being able to be graded by TrackMan, seeing the TrackMan, have you seen a difference in the strike zone? Do you think it's a smaller strike zone? Do you think it's the same? What are your thoughts, if any, from it?
Well, no, I do. I think it's it's definitely changed it some. I don't. I think those umpires have a hard job. I
Yep.
think we're always going to be very subjective of whatever they call. And as long as it's both ways, I'm great with it. Whatever your zone is. But I do think now with the technology and the grade and stuff, I think it's less liberal a little bit. But I think they're doing a good job, because there's times where my mind, I'm going, man, this dude, he's tight, man. And then I go back and I look, go, well, he's pretty good, So I don't know. I think because of the new technology that can, evaluate those. I think they're trying to do a better job too. And I don't know. I know walks are up, but maybe walks are up because there's less pitching being taught. I don't know. And stuff, which I think there's a lot of that. Get stuff and let them throw, and shoot for the middle, and versus the old school way of just sinking it and doing this and moving the ball to all quadrants. So it's probably a combination.
Let me ask you about some of your guys. Let's start with your starting rotation. Billy Oldham has been huge for you guys. And we do a thing at the end of the podcast every week where we name our starting nine and our starting rotation from the weekend. And, Billy seems like he's in our starting rotation, our Sun Belt rotation every weekend. He will be again this week. Nico Mazza's been on that list. And Will Armistead also. All three of your guys at some point have made that list for us as starting pitchers. And how do you feel about your rotation on the weekends?
Well, I feel good about it. I mean, we lost Will Armistead. I don't know if you're aware of that. So him
I
being
thought you
out,
might have. I saw that you skipped a
yeah.
spot there in the
Unfortunately,
rotation.
man, he just had that elbow got to him, and I hated that for him. So, really right now I got two starters. I'm not sugarcoating it. That's kind of what we have, and Billy and Nico. These last two weekends when it all went down, I told them, I said, "Hey guys, you're going to throw 100 plus pitches. You're going to work out of your own mess. You got to carry, some distance." And they've done a remarkable job the back-to-back weekends of doing that. But both of them has been in the fire. They were in it last year. Both of them started super regional games. Both of them started regional games. And conference championship, whatever. I mean, so they've been in the moment. So to me, they're not sped up, and so forth. And they've grown. I mean, I think they've grown, and they're doing what you hope to have in your rotation. Some guys you feel like what you're going to get, and that's all I can ask for.
Ty, let me jump in there and ask him about his bullpen too. Sibley and Allen have been big for you.
They have. We lost a piece with McCarty English, a freshman arm that was really, really looking great, having a great freshman campaign. Had a stress fracture in his arm, and so we had to shoot him down for a little bit. And so there were some pieces there that kind of hurt, and but between Colby and Cross, I think they've combined for about 100 innings out of the bullpen, and been very reliable. We've kind of found some good rhythm, handing it off from. They're different looks, they're different stuff, and so you go from like Billy to Cross. I mean, they're so different. You're preparing for such a different thing, and even Nico with the riding 95-mile-an-hour heater to Colby with good sink and slider. So those guys have been done a great job amongst others as well.
Coach, when you're looking at on that, I'm going to piggyback on that a little bit. When you're sitting down on Thursday night of the series and you look at the team you're playing, when you talk about piggybacking, is it important for you to go from an offset of maybe taking a 95-mile-an-hour fastball and a foot difference between the next guy, left-handed rhythm-wise changeup? Is that more important to you or the lineup of the other team, whether it's a right-left matchup or whatever that might be? Do you ride on what you feel like your guys do better or what the other lineup calls for, a combination of all the above?
With those two we just talked about, probably not. I'm not. I'm going to let them do what they need to do because I think they have a way to get the lefty or righty out, and so forth. But for others, yes. I mean, there's others that you kind of know, hey, so and so doesn't need a pitch, in this segment here or whatever. It's just not a good matchup and stuff. So, and we have enough variation between Chandler Best, another lefty that's been very successful against both lefties and righties, and and it's a couple right-handers that have success against lefties, but then we have some that just need to face righties and stuff. So, but kind of for my bread and butter guys, the ones I'm handing it off too late, it doesn't really matter. I'm going to let they're my guys. I'm going to let it ride with them.
Let me talk about some of your bats here. Dalton McIntyre has been your top hitter all year. He's at 384 right now, leads the team in hits, leads the team in on-base percentage. Slade Wilkes, no big surprise. He's been your power hitter. Carson Pato's had a good year. Ozzie Pratt, your shortstop's been really good. And Gabe Broadus, last couple of weeks, man, this guy's come up with clutch hit after clutch hit for you.
Yeah, no doubt. It's a new offense. We have three bats returning from last year between Wilkes, Pato, and Monaster, and they've done a good job. And so the new pieces, it's been fun to watch them grow. Obviously Ozzie Pratt, he played the last 2 years at BYU, so he's got Division I experience. But between McIntyre and Broadus and Gillespie, this is their first. And to watch their growth from the beginning to now, it's been very, very fun to watch and encouraging. So, when we're clicking well, I mean, I think it's a long lineup. I really do. Just like any, there's times where you get real frustrated, go like, why can't we hit, and so forth. But I think the growth and what our hitting coaches have done with them has been great. And I like kind of where we're at, with that. And I feel like we found some good rhythm.
Coach, I'm gonna peel off of the team part of it for a second, and this is just a curious question. I probably know the answer to it, but the people listening or watching may not. I mean, you were a junior college head coach, and you spent some time in the junior college ranks. How much do you think that that's played a part in you sitting in the chair you're at today, and the mindset that you have and the abilities you've had to coach as not only pitchers but now a whole team and an organization?
I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be where I'm at today if I didn't have those years there. 100%. That's where I found myself. That's where I think I found my voice, and my kind of identity. Just kind of all the 10 years of being an assistant, and with some great programs, Delta State, and I was at Arkansas State for 4 years, and just kind of young coach figuring things out. And then once I got that opportunity to lead a team, and man, I'm calling pitches, I'm in the third base box, I was having a blast, so I don't know, I started just really felt like I grew a lot, and I think once I got in that third base box, I think I became a better pitching coach too, because you think from an offensive perspective with things as well. So, my route's been kind of weird, I started off at Delta State for 6 years, where I played at, and man, just cutting my teeth, grinding it out with Coach Mike Kennison, one of the best coaches out there. Learned so much. Then I go to Arkansas State. I was with Keith Kessinger, who had a lot of a pro side, pro flair, pro mentality to it, which I learned some things that I haven't heard at Delta State, and then I go to high school for 2 years. I'm a head high school coach for 2 years before I go to Jones. And so 2 years as a high school coach, 8 years at Jones as a head coach. And then, kind of got conviction, man, if I want to see if I can do it at the big boy level. And had a chance to go to Louisiana Tech, in the fall of 15. And made that decision, did it, and there a couple years, and been here ever since. So very thankful, but I've been shaped by all my stops, no doubt about it. But that JUCO part, man, that was fun. You could just coach, and really impact the kids' lives a lot too.
Yeah, you were with Coach Barry, who remains with the university, and as we were talking about and joking about before we started our conversation, he's around every day, has a role with the school, and that's great. Yeah, I think you're like one of only 4 coaches for Southern Miss in the last 50 years. I mean, when they get the job, they keep the job. I mean, I don't think there's any other program in America that could brag of that kind of stability. And I just read you guys are 30 wins again this year, 22 consecutive seasons. It's the longest streak in Division I baseball. What's it like to be the head coach at a place where baseball is so important, where it's such a big sport on campus, where it means a lot to the school and to the community and to the fans?
Well, it's an honor. First, I mean, I'm extremely humbled to be this. For Coach Barry, seeing me to be his successor meant the world to me. I mean, that was as high as it gets for me. And but I know the responsibility with it, and I like that, man. At the point I'm at in my career, I wouldn't really want to go to a rebuilding this and that. I'm at a place. This is where I want to be, and it was and a lot of easy decisions to stay here, I guess you could say. And but this is a special place. What started with Pete Taylor, who the park's named after, then to Hill Denson. And Hill's, he's a legend, and he sits in the office, he comes by, and then the late Coach Corky Palmer, what a great man, and enjoyed the years with him when he was here and still being involved. And then Coach Barry. So, how I got this thing, man, beyond me, but I'm very thankful, and it's an honor to follow the lines of those great men. But this job is unique, I think. I think the community involvement is so strong. We got a great fan base. The expectations are sky high, but that's what you want. I mean, you want people to care. You want them to care when you win. You want them to care when you lose and stuff. And that's fine. That's part of the job. And to me, they give me my opportunity. I'm going to do everything I can to try to keep this university and this program where it's at, or take it even further, whatever that means.
Coach, last for me, what do you think you guys got to do if obviously to win the tournament, always put you in and all that, and from Sun Belt perspective, you got 2 weekends left. You get down this part of the year, everybody's tough, right? Every weekend is huge. Everybody, you start looking at your calendar and your schedule, and you go, "Oh my God, we got to do this," and then those last 2 weeks show up in the tournament. But from your perspective, what do you think you guys got to do moving forward from this day forward, headed into the last 2 weekends in the postseason, to get yourself in the right shape to make it to the NCAA's?
We got to keep pitching the baseball
Yeah.
because our depth, our margin for error is not great. We need good starts out of those first two guys, and then I need a few guys to step up. The ability's there. I've seen it. I mean, the ability's there. They need to allow it to happen sometimes and stuff, and that's part of growth. And with it, but I think offensively we can compete with anything that we come up against, and I think we can do it. We can compete with anybody's offense as well. From the mound perspective, we just need to continue to go out there and do it because, like I said, our margin for errors is not great with our numbers and bodies. But this group's really come a long way, man. They've stayed together and competed well, even on some tough, I remember like that Georgia State week, and we got our teeth kicked in on a Friday and Saturday. I mean, and then on Sunday we're down 6-1 after 3 innings, and our dudes kept fighting, and they didn't quit, and they came back and won that game. To me, that was a very pivotal moment for this group, and them, just a building block and stuff. So I like the chemistry and attitude right now. It feels right. Things are, I feel like I've been able to step out of the circle a little bit and let them go.
I'll say the same thing to you that I said to Gilly a couple of weeks ago. You guys have just been huge for the Sun Belt, just as Coastal was. And, over the last decade, Coastal, Southern Miss, Georgia Southern even, have been added to the mix. And you had the old mainstays, Troy, and Troy's, of course, maybe the hottest team in the conference right now. And Louisiana, of course, the Raging Cajuns have been on top the entire season. But you guys have been instrumental in turning this conference baseball wise into a league that last year got 4, year before got 4, this year should get 4. It's pretty amazing stuff. Y'all have had a big role in all of that, not just benefiting your own program, but benefiting all the programs in the conference.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. I mean, it was this is a good league. We were in that Conference USA for so long, and there was years you would have some of those 4, not many. It was usually a 2-horse race or something like that. Especially for the the regionals and stuff. But this feels like this should last a while. Of where and maybe that's more than 4. At some point, and I believe that could happen too. So I think it's a great league. I think there's some unbelievable coaches, and still haven't met every one of them yet, in person. But just a lot of respect. You got to show up and play, man. If you don't play well, you're going to get beat. So that's just kind of the nature of this league.
Coach Oz, thanks a lot for being with us, and good luck the rest of the season. Look forward to talking to you at the Sun Belt Tournament.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate you all having me.
Coach, best of luck.
Thanks, Coach. Appreciate it.
All right, Coach. Appreciate it. Great to visit with Coach Oz, and he's having a great first season there with the Golden Eagles, Coach. Let's take a look at our starting 9 for the week. And again, Troy, man, they keep bringing guys to the table here on this starting lineup. We'll start with catcher Brooks Bryan, 5 for 11, double, homer, 4 RBI, 4 runs scored. First baseman Will Butcher of Troy, 4 for 13, double, 3 home runs and 10 RBI, 5 runs scored. Chase Moore from Texas State, first time he's been on the list this season after having a fabulous freshman season. The second baseman went 4 for 12, couple of homers, 5 RBI, 4 runs scored. The shortstop Kyle DeBarge of Louisiana, he's every week now, isn't he? 6 for 15, 3 doubles, 2 home runs, 6 RBI, 5 runs scored. And the third baseman Will Mize, Georgia State, he's been on this list before, 4 for 15, a triple, 2 homers, 6 RBI, 4 runs scored.
If you go look at the run value of Will Butcher and the week he had, that's a 15 run of RBI, or I'm sorry, 15 run value he added in there with the 10 RBIs and him being part of it, obviously with the homers, but him scoring 5 runs, when you start looking at that and what that represents, and him driving himself in a couple of times, but that's, for some people, that's a month, and or 3 or 4 weekends, and what he was able to do in one weekend, and a huge weekend, and again, against a pitching staff with Louisiana that has been pretty stingy, and particularly early in the year, we're really stingy. And so, was leading in a lot of different categories pitching wise. And so, obviously, this is just a great, stater of the obvious. I mean, what an incredible weekend when you're able to do that against, a really good Louisiana team.
Yeah. And he made the list last weekend when they swept Coastal Carolina. So let's look at our outfielders and our DH. Banks Tolly of App State. And this guy's just having a phenomenal season. Hit 3 more home runs, gives him 21. He's blown by the program record. 7 for 12 for the weekend, 8 RBI, 4 runs scored. Matt Ruiz, Georgia State, a guy that was playing shortstop. They've moved him to the outfield. They flip-flopped him with the center fielder. They've flip-flopped there, and he went 4 for 14, 3 home runs himself, 8 RBI, 3 runs scored. Davis Gillespie of Southern Miss went 5 for 9, 3 doubles, 4 RBI, 2 runs scored. And the DH is Kyle Mock, Troy. He went 7 for 11, couple of doubles, couple of home runs, 9 RBI, and 4 runs scored. And to your point, Troy just stacking up runs.
Start adding this up, between the 3 guys you have on here from Troy, I mean, you're looking at 23 RBIs between the 3 of them. And again, against a really, I'm going to say it again, a really good Louisiana team. And when you look at this from, for Kyle Mock, that's a 9 RBI, 2 of them being himself. That's what that means, and for run value and from one individual. And usually, like I said, if you would have added 2 of those, maybe it would have been a whole team. Oftentimes on a weekend. But you've talked about it before, and this is not the first time it's come up. You've been on talking about this for the last 3 weeks, how Troy kept trending this way and how offensively they were, and then for them to show it again against this past weekend shows that they're trending in the right direction.
Yeah, I think they finished with 37 runs, 37 runs in that series against the Raging Cajuns. I mean, we've had series where teams didn't score double digits for the entire weekend against the Raging Cajuns, and they just blasted them. It's got to be a scary thought for head coaches as Troy gets ready to head down to Montgomery or over to Montgomery. They're the closest team to Montgomery for the tournament. So, starting rotation: Bryce Blevins, Marshall. They're probably not going to make the tournament. We're not going to get a chance to see him, but he's had a heck of a season. Got a win, 7 innings, 1 run, 4 hits, 1 walk, 11 strikeouts. Dante Chirico, App State, got a win, 7 innings, 2 runs, 1 earned, 1 hit, 2 walks, 7 strikeouts. Billy Oldham again, Southern Miss, got a win, 7 innings, 2 runs, 4 hits, 2 walks, 11 strikeouts.
Let's start with Blevins, because I had a chance to watch him a couple times on ESPN Plus, and he is good. I don't know if we're going to get to see him in the tournament or not, and whether his name will come back up again on your list this year or not. Maybe at the end of the year when we get done with everything and you and I get a chance to sit back down and kind of wrap it up as possible. But he has had a good year, and I've seen him throw at different times and throw the ball well. And then, Billy Oldham, we've heard his name, and he's been good for them for a while, and you'll get a chance to listen to Coach Ostrander talk about him in just a little bit as well. And for Chirico, for him to throw good, South Alabama is playing with some urgency right now, and for him to go in there and throw 7 innings and give up 1 hit,
Yeah.
That's obviously it states itself and is the type of outing that he had. I noticed that there's a trend in that, and that all of them got to 7 innings. All these guys now are at that point where they can go to 110 to 125 if needed. If you're really trying to press the button for postseason, either NCAA or just to get in to the Sun Belt. You're at that point where these guys are going deep, and sometimes you don't want to get to your bullpen. And then this past weekend there were a lot of games that were moved to doubleheaders because of weather. And when you play doubleheaders, you allow your starters. You want your starters. You'll allow them to stay out there because you'll stress your bullpen in a doubleheader in a hurry. Guys you throw in game one historically aren't able to come back in game two and be as productive.
Yeah, that's what happened with Tirico. He ended up having to pitch the front end of a doubleheader on Sunday, and he was, he was just absolutely fabulous. And as we heard Coach Oz say with Oldham, with Armistead going down, I mean, he's got two starters. It's Oldham and Mazza, and he's already told them, look, guys, you're going to have to pitch more. You got to throw more pitches. You're going to have to go longer here because, we're taxed. We've lost a starter. We've lost a weekend starter. So you can expect to see his name keep popping up. So interesting. He might even have a chance to be a, pitcher of the year candidate here for the entire Sun Belt. In our bullpen, got a couple of guys from the Georgia Southern Eagles from their series. Mitchell Gross, 2 appearances, picked up a save, 3 1/3, no runs, 2 hits, no walks, 4 strikeouts. Jacob Phillips really covered a lot of innings for him. 1 appearance, got a win, 6 2/3. That's like a start. He had a start out of the bullpen. Gave up 1 run, 4 hits, 1 walk, and 4 strikeouts. And T.R. Williams from James Madison, first time we've had him on the list. He got a win, 4 innings, no runs, 1 hit, 1 walk, and 8 strikeouts out of the pen for him.
Good as your bullpen. I know, starting pitching is so critical and so important. And, everybody, those last 9 outs, if you're just saying, 6 innings or 7 innings, whatever it may be, those last 9 outs are obviously as critical as the first out, but they seem to have a big magnifying glass on them, particularly when you've used what you probably think are your best guy or should be your best guy when you're starting them in those bullpens. Now, not to go 6 2/3 inning as Phillips did and to come out of there with a win, but it may be now that Coach may be looking at going, well, maybe we need to start him on Sunday, or do we just keep him where he is because he was so good out of the pen for him?
Well, that's what I love about the college game. I mean, the pro game. I mean, look, I love Major League Baseball. Who doesn't love Major League Baseball? But the bullpens are so well defined. You're going to be we got our middle guy, our long guy if we need him, and then but the 7th, 8th, and 9th are taken. These you're the 7th inning guy, you're the 8th inning guy, you're the 9th inning guy, you're the closer. College baseball, a lot of teams just don't have closers. They have stoppers. And they have their number 1 guy out of the bullpen. And it might not be the 9th. It might be the 5th that he comes into the game when they need him. That's what I love about it.
Different. I don't even, and now, when pro baseball becomes college baseball in the playoffs.
In the playoffs, it does, yeah.
Right, because college baseball is like 4th and 1. So, or 3rd and 3 every game. In football, just using that as a reference, where in professional baseball, there's 162 games. They don't get, they're like, well, we got a long ways. It's a long, but then all of a sudden the playoffs get here and you see a guy have to bunt for the first time, or you see a guy have to, or you'll see a reliever come in, back to back to back, or a starter roll back on short rest and them try to get 3 innings out of you when you get into playoff baseball. So I love pro baseball too, but to me, it becomes more like college baseball or more like what we're used to once they get to the playoffs.
That's a great point. Excellent point. All right. Before we go, the top series this weekend, at least in my mind, here are the 2 top series this weekend. Just give us a little nugget, your thoughts on these 2 series. Louisiana is at Georgia Southern. Eagles have surged up to a tie for 3rd with Southern Miss. They're 15-9 in the conference. Georgia State is at Coastal Carolina, and of course, those guys are fighting for their lives.
One with Louisiana, Georgia Southern, yes, I think it's huge because you got a Georgia Southern team that's playing pretty good, and like a lot of teams, they've gone up and down, but they're playing well right now. And Louisiana to have to go on the road again and take their show on the road, and they're still trying to protect what they have. is going to be a challenge. I think it's going to be exciting. I think it's going to be great baseball. I think you're right. I think it's going to be one of the highlight series because, well, let's just play hypothetical. What does happen if Georgia Southern, takes 2 or 3 and or, whatever it may be, and they have and win the series and things get even. Remember we talked about it. It compresses. It gets even tighter at the top if that happens. And they're playing well enough that they could. I mean, Louisiana goes in and out play good. It very easily could happen. And then, or not very easily, but could happen. And then when you look at Georgia State Coastal and talking about the implications of both those teams and what it means, number one, for them to get, postseason-wise into the Sun Belt tournament and have an opportunity to win the tournament. And for Coastal, and still they're, their RPI is not that far out of there. I mean, they're just, but you got those 6 games, and how critical is that going to be for them moving in for the last 2 weekends? And then one more series. I think Troy and Texas State is a big, because Texas State's fighting to get into the Sun Belt tournament right now. If it ended today, which it is not. And again, I go back to 6 games, a lot of baseball games left with so much value on each of them. If it was the end of the day, they wouldn't be in. So they're going to be playing with their hair on fire. And they're going to be playing with all hands on deck and all the above. And Troy the same way. Troy believes they got a chance, not only to help secure themselves from an RPI perspective, but they're chasing Louisiana, thinking, hey, we just come out of a great weekend with them. Let's go see if we can chase them down. So I think that's another series to add to it as well.
Yeah, you rhetorically asked what happens if Georgia Southern, takes care of Louisiana. Skylar Meade sends Rodney Hennon a gift card to Buffalo Wild Wings or something. I mean,
it might be Buffalo Wild Wings and more, or wherever it might be. But yeah, I mean,
I just think of Buffalo Wild Wings because, during baseball season, that's just kind of because, baseball games they end so late. You got to find a place that's still open. And
I'm guilty. I'm guilty. Look, there's nothing wrong with a. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with a bucket of beer in front of you and some wings right there, and you're finishing watching games, or you got them, ESPN Plus on your phone while you're watching it and watching the big league game up there. That don't make you a bad guy.
No doubt. That makes it fun. Coach, enjoyed it. Look forward to doing this again next week.
We're running out of Mondays, and that's what's making it even that much more exciting.
Absolutely.